All you more.
Woo! What? Sorry, guys. Started off with a cough. But what is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 56, Christmas week breakouts of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson, featuring our friend OJ from the Philadelphia Tribune. Thank you for joining us today, OJ. We got a lot to cover. We'll try and get through it pretty quickly. OJ's with us for roughly the next 30 to 40 minutes. And then he's got to hop off, and then I'm on for, the next 30 minutes. Then Kyle and are on for the next 30 minutes or so as I got to go to the store and get stuff for dinner because I haven't done that today because for any of you that are out there that have had wives or girlfriends or friends and family that have been pregnant, you know that there are just a million things that you have to do. And today I got to do my lovely glucose test, which means that you get to chug a sugary flat drink of flat spicy orange soda water, sugar water in 3 minutes, and then sit there for an hour and then get your blood work done to see how all your sugars levels are looking. So that knocked me out when I got home. So I did nothing that I was supposed to do today. So got to do that at 8 o'clock after, or 8:30 after we finish taping the pod. So how are you guys? How was your Christmases? Hope everything was lovely with your family and everything like that.
Yeah, Christmas was good.
No, everything was great, Morgan. Took some time off, took the entire week off, everything much needed, kind of get away from it all, see some family and everything. So it was wonderful.
Love that. That's exactly what the holidays are for. Colin, how about you?
Yeah, just chilled. Had some we chilled as a household. Usually have this big family reunion, but as I'm sure I don't need to tell y'all, there's something's going around. Not I'm good, we're good, but like something's going around. So we played it safe this time. So just chilled, watch some Christmas Day basketball, football, watch the Beyonce Bowl like everybody else did, and just chilled. Got some holiday specials in there, some Home Alone. And a little short story. The best time. I mean, I did this during the Bourne Super Bowl when the Rams and the Patriots went at it in the baseball bowl. But fun fact: the best time to go to a grocery store, and this was during the Super Bowl, so your experience may vary. But I've done the grocery store run at 8:30, where the store was mostly empty. Great time. Again, that was during the Super Bowl, so I don't know what your experience is going to be like a couple of days before New Year's Eve, Morgan. But if it's anything like mine during the Super Bowl, it should be pretty smooth. Yeah, how was yours?
It was lovely. It was lovely. My mom and uncle came up. We were all up at my in-laws. There was 10 of us, so it was nice. It is always interesting being the lone non Christmas punch partaker. Having the baby in the belly. So everybody was on a slightly different schedule than I was. Christmas Eve, we did not eat till 9:45, and I will tell you that my pregnancy hunger rage did come out quite a bit.
Oh, no.
But it's been really fun. We got some really precious stuff for the baby for Christmas, which is really exciting. So it was awesome. It was great. There was 5 dogs, 10 people.
Wow.
All in a house, so very
full house.
fun. Yeah, full house for sure. Every and it's been nice. My brother-in-law and his girlfriend have moved back up to Connecticut, so it's been nice having them up here, getting to see them all the time. So, but I think because we got so much to cover, we should just get right into it. Make sure to give us a follow on X/Twitter. I'm M_India_Miller. Kylan's Kylan W. Watson, and OJ is OJ Philly. So give us all a follow. I know Kylan and I were chatting up on Twitter yesterday during the Eagles game. But speaking of the Eagles game, we will get right into it. So the Eagles beat down on the Dallas Cowboys. I was not expecting. I mean, I thought the Eagles were going to win, but I was not expecting the Cowboys to just roll over and like belly up like it seems like they did. Specifically, especially since, the game before, they had found out hours before that they are, that they were eliminated and they played their hearts out. And it just looked like they didn't have the same fight, the same fire in them this week. Obviously, Saquon was playing for quite a bit this weekend, and we'll get into Saquon and should he play next week and all that in a little bit. But Kenny Pickett had moments where he looked fantastic, and then moments where, I mean, that throw spin thing that he did was one of the worst moments I've seen a quarterback have in a long time. I mean, hey, at least it wasn't nothing happened with it, but that will be a meme that will be lived on forever. But I will spin it over to you guys. Tell me your thoughts watching this game, kind of heading into the last week of the season.
Sure. So I missed like the first quarter. I won't hold you. Was in West Philly. So I missed the CJGJ redemption, his pick six, and whatever happened, how the Cowboys tied the game. Missed that, but was tuned in for the rest of it. I thought this was interesting. You could clearly see that the Eagles took the Cowboys more seriously than I think most of us thought they would. And after the way they lost last week, which we got into, but a lot of y'all didn't hear last week because of some technical difficulties, Trey and I. Which just to precursor this, because I said this off air, so let me say it on air, because I know some of y'all who are ardent fans might be all like, didn't the episode 56 happen last Sunday? Just a little bit after the game? It did, but we had some technical difficulties, and y'all didn't hear a majority of it. So episode 56 is happening again, just with Morgan and OJ instead of Trey. But yeah, so for me, I really thought this was made by the defense. Again, I'm sure OJ is going to get into it more as well when it's his turn as well. But I mean, that for a while, the Eagles defense was in a drought. It felt like they were never going to get a turnover. Like their luck was just as bad with turnovers as it was for Nick Nurse and challenging a basketball player. Those of you who are Sixers fans know what I'm talking about. You're probably laughing on the floor right now because I just said that and made that comparison. But now, you had 9 turnovers in 2 games. I think the Eagles are finally getting it right, other than the fact that Jalen Carter gets held on every play and no one calls it for some reason. But we have the Eagles finally, it seems like, have that recipe, right? It felt like what was missing, as Morgan and I went into, and OJ has talked about, I'm sure, in many columns, like they felt like they were so close to getting more turnovers instead of just the 1 or 2 that they were getting in games before. And now the spigot has opened. I'm not saying that they're going to have 4+ turnovers every game or even in the playoffs. If they face the Packers or Commanders, it might be 1 or 2 again, but I think that this was just that game, and I think Kenny Pickett looked good enough for what the Eagles needed. He looked like a quarterback that finally had a full week to prepare instead of just 2 or 3 days. So I feel relatively confident in Pickett, and especially in McKee, who I think I haven't seen since the preseason. I know OJ sees the practices and stuff more than I do, but I haven't seen. I didn't know if I expected the way he came out and getting 2-3 touchdowns in basically a half. But I really think this was made by the defense, and I think that the Eagles seem like they have found the formula: balance, 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 as I talked about in my article, which is linked below, and you can probably OJ and I are probably the same mind here, but balance, 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 and I think what really saved the Eagles was that play that you kind of touched on, Morgan, where OJ was there live, so he could probably talk about this more from his perspective and seeing it from the press box. But that play Kenny Pickett made, where I swore he was going to throw an interception, and somehow Grant Calcaterra became OJ Beckham and one-handed that thing, and I was like, oh my God, okay. So it's gonna be that type of game, because before I just didn't think they had it, but it kind of was reminiscent of that Commanders game from a few years ago, where it felt like the Cowboys were just playing keep away and the Eagles offense couldn't get nothing done. But they were able to put it together, and I'm relatively confident, more confident in the Eagles backups, specifically on the quarterback side, than I was if Jalen Hurts has to miss any time, but I doubt he will. I'm gonna turn this over to OJ now, though.
Yeah, I thought the Eagles just did what they were supposed to do. They wanted to take care of business. They knew they had a tough loss the previous week at Washington, and they just wanted to get out and take care of business. And you saw that it was indicative of Gardner Johnson's pick six. So, once I saw that, and even though Dallas ended up tying the game soon after, you kind of knew that, okay, they're going to take over this game. And you talk about the turnovers, Colin. I think that's a great sign for them going into the playoffs because as I look at their potential opponents, they're all susceptible of turning the ball over. And the big thing about the Eagles is, okay, once Jalen Hurts comes back, it just all depends of how much can they capitalize off turnovers. And you saw last week against Washington, they weren't able to capitalize as much. You see that, Pickett didn't have much time. He was called to duty, so to speak, without having practice time. And even, against Dallas, he was hurt. He really has bruised ribs is not a broken rib. The Eagles aren't really saying, how severely he's hurt, but you could see. But they took care of business, and here they are they secured the 2 seed. We'll see what happens in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think what's been interesting with I think kind of a multitude of these quarterbacks that we've seen this season is these like injuries that happen that we aren't. I feel like in the past we kind of knew what was going on with players at all times, and I don't know if it's. And then the last maybe couple seasons, I've been seeing more. I know Kylan doesn't follow hockey as much as I do, but we've been seeing kind of more like hockey terminology being used, like, oh, it's an upper body injury, it's an injury
Lower
to the rib,
injury,
it's an injury to the hand, and where in the past it's he has a bruised rib or a cracked rib, he'll be out for this many weeks, blah, 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 where, and I totally understand, all sides of it because, you don't want to limit yourself and you don't want your opponents to necessarily maybe know everything. Okay, well that's he's gonna play. It's just a bruised rib, so God forbid, let's target that area or whatever. So it's interesting. And I think that we've kind of talked about Jalen Hurts' is health injuries. And so I think we'll kind of mix these two questions, like how far do we think the Eagles can go in the postseason? It's that. And we can kind of honestly talk about the Giants game coming up in there all together, being that, do you rest him? That's a big concern, right? Do you rest him? Do you rest the rest of these players? Because is that going to affect how far they go into the postseason, right? If you're resting players, then is that going to get people out of rhythm? Is that going to, is that going to be something that's harder for them to overcome as they go? Is it something that they just need to play through? What I find really interesting about the NFC this year is I think there are very few teams that can win multiple playoff games. I think that the Eagles could win multiple playoff games. However, I think unfortunately, because I think that they are going to be stuck in this position where they may play one of these like teams that are just they're like oh god, again, pregnancy brain, can't remember what they're just like let's say like you play the Rams, you play the Pack, or you play Green Bay. Now, Green Bay, I don't think can win multiple games, but could they win one game? Yeah, I think they could, and I think they could spoil Super Bowl or postseason playoffs for other teams. Where again, I think that if the Eagles or whoever get past that first round, I think they could continue to roll. But I think there's a lot of these little sneaker teams on the NFC side that don't have the capability to win it all, but they could go in and surprise and put together one really solid game and come together and kick them out. So for you guys, I'll both ask, who would you be most nervous to see first round? Would it be the Packers? Would it be the Rams? Would it be the Commanders? Who would that be?
I don't really have a team in the first round that I wouldn't want to see necessarily, because I think it all depends on how the Eagles prepare, whether they sit guys against the Giants or not. Because, you made a great point, Morgan. Eagles have to win 3 games to get to the Super Bowl, even though they're the 2 seed, because we no longer, of course, have the second bye, right? So they have to win.
Stupid.
Yeah, so they,
stupid.
yeah, so they have to win 3 games. So I think that'll also factor a lot in Nick Sirianni's decision on whether they play their starters or not, because one thing, and I know we'll talk about, the record and all, Saquon getting a record and everything, when you do that, you have to have everybody in action. You have to have your full offensive line in, and possibly, as you said, Morgan, again, how much do you play Jalen Hurts if you want to bring him back up to speed and all? And Saquon's at, gosh, I forget how many carries he's at. But if you look at his overall touches, it's closing in on 400. So you want to monitor that as well. And they haven't had a bye since week 5. They had a mini bye after they played the Rams. So a lot of that factors in.
Yeah.
And going back to your original point, Morgan, a team like the Packers or a team like the Commanders who, they're really de facto wild cards, so to speak, right? They can come in and possibly knock off one of those division winner teams. I don't think necessarily the Eagles per se, but they can come in and beat a Tampa Bay, or they can beat a whoever doesn't win the NFC North.
Yeah, I think like I said, the NFC is really interesting this year, whereas the AFC, I'm like, okay, I feel like there's so many teams in the AFC that I'm like, oh my, everywhere you look, I'm like, that Super Bowl contender, Super Bowl contender, Super Bowl contender. Whereas I feel like in the NFC, there are like 2 teams. I'm like, okay, like you guys are good if you make it there, but you have all these weird little teams that like have been having these like amazing games randomly, and then other games where you're like, you shouldn't even be in the NFL. So Kyle, I was gonna say, so Kyle, looking at that, like, do you think that the decision next week against the Giants is gonna affect severely the postseason? Like, do you think Nick Sirianni is thinking about that as he's going into that, or is because, again, I think it would be scarier if you, not scarier to, because having a bye is always nice, but having that bye, I know the Chiefs fans are all talking about this. Okay, yeah, they sit people this week. Okay, well, last time they played them was Christmas, and they have, what is that, like 14, 15, 16 days in between starts if they sit people next week, because then they have the bye. So you have the advantage of not having the bye. You do have to play come 2 weeks from now. So does that factor into Nick Sirianni's decision to not play? Are you going like end of preseason? They play the first half, they don't play the second half. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think for me, let me just say, I think all indications are he probably will not play them on the thing. I think if he plays anybody, it may be Jalen Hurts, and just to like get the momentum going in like one series or less. I would say even like I advocated for this in my article about it, like just treat it like a preseason game. If Saquon's 100 yards away, so if they do decide to do that, I mean, unlike the last time they played the Giants, it's not in the Middleland, so they don't have to worry about that horrible turf, or AJ Brown getting injured
and for being
tackled
honest,
on that
the
cement.
Giants don't want to win. Yeah. I know the players say that they want to win, but like, we can talk about the advantages and non-advantages.
What were they doing yesterday trying to win? What were they doing yesterday?
I think they did what they needed. They did what they needed to do, right? They like yesterday, Drew Lock. I realistically think Drew Lock was playing. I don't know what he was playing for, but he played. He showed that he can be a solid backup quarterback yesterday.
He was playing for his career, man. That's what he was playing for.
Malik wanted to break his all the rookie
franchise records.
The rookie franchise records and things like that. So I think they had their game where they're like, okay, like screw you guys. We're still an NFL team. We can still do good things, but they're not gonna
look, this game
that doesn't happen twice for the Giants this season. Let's put it that way.
This game on Sunday is basically a thing of who wants to win more. But at this point, I think that the Eagles will probably sit most, if not all, of their players. Maybe Saquon gets like 2 series to try it out. Maybe even the first quarter. I think Nick Sirianni's having shades of last year when there was nothing that they could really play for, but they were just playing for confidence. And AJ Brown got hurt, as we all saw on that terrible turf that even Morgan admits is terrible turf. So we don't need to rehash that, but I think shades of last year will echo in his mind, and I think he won't play the majority of his starters. I think maybe just because of youth, maybe he'll play like the rooks, so like Quinyon will get a chance because he's young. Cooper will play. Like, I feel like if you're a young rook, you'll play, but all the vets won't play, except for maybe Jalen, like I said, just to get some momentum, as you guys so eloquently pointed out. But I want to point out something else. I mean, I can't take credit for this. This was Jeff Kerr. Every time the Eagles win more than 13 or more games, every year that has happened, they go to the Super Bowl. So they have a lot working in their favor. 2004, 13 wins. 2017, I think it was 13 wins or 14 wins. 2022, 14 wins. This time, 13 and a half wins, because we'll see, depending on who Nick Sirianni plays, if they actually win that game. Morgan, I know you're saying they're trying to lose, but I feel like by Wednesday, we'll know if Nick Sirianni is deciding he's trying to win that game or just trying to get some offensive momentum. I don't really know what he's trying to do. I mean, right now he's saying all the right things. As OJ heard, as all of us heard this week, he's saying they're focused on the Giants. That's very true, but it's also a lie, because we know he's focusing on the other two teams. I don't really know how much more prep you need to do for the Commanders or the Packers. But I think, to answer your question, I think just because of, like, even though I just went through that stat, the team that's like a 5 to me, if the Eagles played them again, would be the Commanders, just because, as I think a lot of people pointed out, and as I know some of y'all superstitious people would say, like I said, I'm putting Kylan the fan to the side right now. It's just Kylan the sports media guy right now. I think that it would concern the Eagles, because you don't really see that you beat a team 3 times in a row. Now, obviously, last week you can kind of say that was a Mickey Mouse win for the Commanders, because Jalen Hurts got hit on what some people are calling a dirty hit. Whatever. But he got hurt, and if Jalen Hurts plays that game, they probably win. So then, you're probably more confident. But I think that's like a 4 to me. I'm not really worried about the Packers or the Commanders. As OJ pointed out, they're prone to turnovers. The Packers are really a team for me. If you're worried about the most, it's the Packers, just because they have the propensity to, like, go off for the second half. But I think, I think the Eagles are pretty much guaranteed to either play on Sunday night or Monday night in 2 weeks. So I think with that being the case, as long as you don't end up playing on Saturday, you're good. Play them, if you need.
Yeah,
if you need to. But
I don't know if they. I don't remember how. I'm trying to think of how we generally do the schedules. I know that I know NBC normally has that that still has that Sunday night game, even though it's 2 games. It's 2 games and 2 games, 4 games, or 3 games, 3 games. I can't remember.
I think as long as they don't get the Thursday night playoff game with Amazon, they're good. So, like, as long as you don't end up on Thursday or Saturday night, which, obviously I don't know anything, but I'm just assuming.
I don't yet.
It'll probably end up either being the Eagles, Packers.
we need a scoop, Morgan.
And I was going to tell you. You want to know a little inside baseball? We don't know either. You know that we were signing. We found out what game we were getting this week at 7 p.m. officially, and we were allowed to announce it till like 9 p.m. Like, we were pretty sure we were going to get Detroit, Minnesota, just because of the way that things landed out. And you want the last game of the season to mean whatever.
Unless they lose to the 40
elimination there.
Yeah, but we were pretty sure that's what we were getting, but it was not official. It was not official. We were like on our edge, because the way that our shows happen, you got to book flights and send people. And so everybody was like, production manager was on. I was like, Jeff, you ready? And he's like, this is the worst. We never know. So same thing as this weekend. Generally, we get the schedules sent out right around halftime for the next week. So our graphic designers are frantically building the schedules for this week. And generally, Mike and Chris will announce it kind of as the second half begins. That would be my from doing past years of NFL football. That's generally when we figure it out. So we won't know anything either.
Let me tell you, I don't know much, but I know that with these matchups coming up, that the best playoff matchup will probably be whatever matchup the Eagles end up with, whether it's the Commanders or Packers. And knowing how box office Eagles fans and whoever the team is that they wound up playing is, it'll be the Sunday. Like, they wound up with the Monday night game last year when they had this year when they had no business having that game on a Monday night. I truly think that the Eagles will end up either being the Sunday night game, because it'll either be them, it'll be Jaden versus Jalen or Jalen versus Jordan, whatever. It'll be one of those two. So it'll be box office in
Brazil
whatever
part
way.
2.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be Brazil part 2 or Philly Washington part 3. And either way, that's going to end up being. I promise you right now.
One
I
of the
don't know
primetime
anything.
games.
Yeah, I promise you right now. Amazon, NBC, Fox, and CBS are bidding on whatever.
I'm sure it's already started. Again, I am so low down the totem pole. They're not going to tell the social person. They don't. They're like, she'll show up, she'll do her job. But while we're looking at that, and kind of we talked about, we've been talking about this a little bit. Should Saquon go for the record and play this week against the Giants? I think I don't know if I think both sides are right. I think yes and no is both right. I don't think that either side is a wrong answer. It's a gigantic record.
Yeah.
It's a all-time record. And the thing is, if I were Sirianni or something, I may have kept him in the game a little bit longer yesterday to try and get some more yards. Say he had
I agree with that, Morgan. Maybe
30 more yards yesterday. 101 is not guaranteed. That is not a guaranteed number for a running back. Whereas you get Saquon down to 75, 60. You can make that work. That can be against a really, really bad Giants team who struggled stopping the run. I think that's almost like you let him play the first quarter and a half. He probably gets it and you're done. 101 yards. He's got to play the whole game. He's got to, and they know, the Giants know that he's going for this record. So they, because again, 75 yards, 65 yards, that's 2 big plays by Saquon to get it done. Whereas 100 is yeah, sure. Technically, yeah, he could do it in one and a half big plays, but it's a little bit more difficult. So I would have said that because they didn't keep him in the game yesterday, they're probably not going to play him, because if they were concerned about that record, they would have kept him in the game. Now, Saquon's always been a class act. I know a million times he's always said he doesn't care. It's about his teammates, blah, 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 blah. Who knows how we really feel? I'm sure he would love to break the record. Who wouldn't want to break a record? But I think that I don't know if it was Kylan or OJ which one of you said this, but I think it's a good thing that I think a lot of people at home probably aren't thinking about. This doesn't just mean that Saquon has to play. This really does mean they have to put their starting offensive lineman in. It doesn't mean that Jalen Hurts has to play, but it really does mean you still have to. Yeah, OJ. Yeah, you said this, that you still have to be able to protect him. You don't want him to get hurt, so you have to. There's more than just starting Saquon that goes into this. So because they didn't keep him in yesterday, I would say they probably are not going to. If I were Saquon, I probably would want to go in and play, but that's just me.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah, he hit the 2000 club. What is they calling him? 2K
Saquon.
2K, which is cool.
2K
and I like Saquon. I obviously wish he was still in the Giants. But I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his family. They're him and his 2 daughters are adorable. His girlfriend, I'm not sure if it's girlfriend or fiance, Anna.
I think it's wife now, right?
Oh, did they get married? Is awesome. Met sophomore year at Penn State. It's a cute story. One that I resonate with and love. But how about you guys? What do you guys think?
For me, I think, knowing how team first he is, they will probably not play him. But I think the pettiness in me, like if he was as petty as I am, I would want to play just to be able to say, and like I did not come up with this, but I think that if he does do it against the Giants, he needs to sign the ball, and be like, how'd that extra $1 million work out for you? Like, just do it that way. But like, that's the pettiness in me. But logically, he's more than likely he's not going to play. And if he does, like I said, it'll probably be like the first quarter, and that's it. I doubt that they will treat this sort of like the Eagles treat preseason games under Nick Sirianni. Like, they barely play. It's like a quarter, if that.
Right.
So I think that, especially now, again, like I said earlier, it's not at MetLife like last year. So I think because the Eagles trust this field, that maybe they'll let him play. I think that's the one thing working in Saquon and everyone's favor is that it's not at MetLife. They got that game out the way, so they can play in Lincoln Financial Field. And as long as, not saying the Giants are doing this, that they're not trying to hurt people like the Cowboys, like I feel like the Cowboys were last night. Like I think that they'll let him play at least for a series or two. Like you
And for
said,
what
I
it's
agree.
worth, I think that the Giants have respect for Saquon. I think the players really liked him. Like that, I don't think that this is a Saquon didn't ask to be traded. Saquon, this wasn't that kind of situation. Saquon has never shit on the Giants after not being there. I think a lot of the players still highly respect him. So I think that, do they want him to break the record on him? Obviously not, but I don't think it's going to be we're going to fiercely stop him in a way that would injure him type of way.
Yeah.
And I just think the Giants they're banged up. I think, like I said before, they did what they needed to do. They showed what they wanted to show last week. They're done. They're like, let's go to Cabo. Let's enjoy our season. It's been cold and rainy here in New York. Let's
do that draft prep for Shador.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just go back to, what I touched on earlier. I think of the fact that they didn't have to play 3 games to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, it would be a no-brainer to go for the record. And I also think this is probably be mandated by the front office, by Howie Roseman and company, to say, hey, we're going to low manage here and, just get ready for the playoffs because, they have a lot invested in this Super Bowl run, in this playoff run. So I don't think they're going to risk it per se. Is there an outside chance that, they'll say, okay, let's see what we do in the first quarter? But again, I think Morgan made a great point. Maybe had they left Saquon in for maybe, another 5-6 carries, he was at 31 before they took him out. So 35, 36 carries probably would not have stretched it too much. But like you said, to maybe close that gap to where it be maybe 75 yards, 65 yards, or, something of that nature. But, I just go with they'll just err on the side of caution and just give these guys a break. Because again, it's been a long time since they've had a bye. Everybody's banged up. You can tell when they're walking from the field into the locker room that, I even saw with AJ Brown, looked like he had a very physical game going back to the locker room. And he went on record saying that, he wanted to rest up. So, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that, going along with what y'all said, I think what happened there, I think the plan was to at least get him to like 34 or 35. But I think that seeing Mekhi, because I think right before they took him out, before he went on that 20-yard run, Mekhi Becton went down. Who else? Somebody else, because Tyler Steen came in, I believe. I think somebody else went down. No, Landon Dickerson actually stayed up in this game. So it was just Mekhi. And so I think that sent a shiver down Nick's spine. And he was like, all right, one more play. And then we out of there with Saquon. Because I think, like you said, OJ, brilliant point as always, and Morgan as well. They've got 4 years and what, $20-some million invested in Saquon. So for the next couple of years, like,
and everybody else,
yeah,
so and I think also too, if you just look back at it, it really is a lot at stake. So, I think they'll make the best decision, but I would just say on the side of caution. I'm not, concerned about anybody getting hurt, but I think they just need that break to just kind of refresh and just go for that run, because no matter who they play in the playoffs, I mean, it's going to be 3 brutal games, and I don't think any of them will be necessarily easy.
Yeah. So I think that, this game this week is going to be, it'll be a snoozer. I think, this is one of the few games that have just absolutely zero implications on absolutely anything. So,
the battle of the backups. I think we're all in agreement that it's going to be the battle of the backups.
Week 3 preseason.
Yeah, it is what it is. We'll get
great guy, by the way.
We'll let some players go and just kind of have some fun. So talking about, people, new people starting and new people in different kind of places. So Kirk Cousins was benched for Michael Penix Jr., who was told while he was in Costco, what a wonderful place to be, that he was going to be the starting quarterback. And what a crazy fun game that was. Obviously, it was our Sunday night football game last week, or yesterday. But the battle of the rookies, the battle of the gunslinger versus the slippery running quarterback, and obviously this game meant so much to the Commanders. Obviously, it meant
both teams.
Meant stuff for both teams, but for
the Commanders really needed this one.
The Commanders really needed this one. What a fun game! What a back and forth game. I have being a little biased on Sunday Night Football, I have to say we've had some really good games this season.
And this game was flexed in, right?
Yeah.
That was perfect.
Comcast will send the check in the mail, Morgan. The check in the mail.
I mean, I can remember my first season. It was like, oh my God, every game was a blowout. It was terrible. This season's been really fun. We've had some really, really good games, really good primetime games. And it was cool getting to watch those two play against each other. They had talked about getting to know each other during the draft process, and they both were, I think, overshadowed by the Caleb Williams of it all last draft season. We knew how good they were, obviously, and
this was the first time this had happened in prime time, correct? Because I
want to say it was if it's not the first time, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And we had, we got to send some of our talent out to go and visit with both of them. And when they came back, they were both so impressed with both of the players. And, it's cool. These are two organizations that I think have not been supremely had supremely good luck, had played well, and that you can say that's the players on the field, you can say that's the front office, you can say it's the coaching, but it's been cool to see both these teams kind of do well this year, and it was just a fun game. And I think that Michael Penix showed that he's the real deal. I don't know what Atlanta's going to do with Kirk Cousins. I doubt they're going to keep him on this team.
They got
hey, Kirk Cousins could be my quarterback next year. I wouldn't hate having Kirk Cousins for the Giants first quarterback.
Look. That's actually not a bad thought. Depending on who you draft and get him ready. That's actually it's actually not bad for him to hold the fort. It just all depends, what the Giants want to pick that up.
Yeah,
it's a horrible thought. I'm just that's a great thought. As a fan, it's a horrible thought.
I mean, really, when you think about where the Giants are as a franchise, I don't think it's not a terrible thought.
We've talked about this. We've talked about this in weeks past, that the Giants on paper look like a world team, blow it all up, but that's not where they're at. They are not a blow it all up team right now. There's some kinks that need to be fixed, but the first couple of games of the season, they were not getting annihilated. It just, the injuries started to pile up. They need to have a backup for if Andrew Thomas gets hurt again. They need a quarterback, maybe not Daniel Jones. I don't even think it really was Daniel Jones's fault. But, we all know how much the Maras and the Giants love the Mannings. So, hey, why not bring in Kirk Cousins, who looks like he could be a cousin of the Mannings, and then wait and draft Arch Manning next year?
No play on words there, right, Morgan?
No.
But yeah, Morgan knows. OJ has heard me. I've been on the record for a while. Even, if you've been following me on Twitter, I was on this as soon as they traded for him. I said it was a dumb move. I don't know why Kirk Cousins did it, because, and I previewed this before they even said it. You're an old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury. You can't be surprised that they got a younger, more agile, better version of you. You were in your, what is he, 35, 36? He's dang near 40. He's dang near 40. If Kirk Cousins 36. And his people have been following 36. Me. Yeah, thank you. Morgan knows I've been on this since the season started. I said, Kirk, you're an injury, a slow start away from getting cut. And that's exactly what happened, right? Like, what does the NFL stand for? What am I so famous for saying on this podcast? The
Not for
NFL stands for
long.
not for long. So Kirk Cousins, like, as most of these NFL players know, we'll get into this later with what's going on at Florida State. But I mean, your contract, isn't worth the paper it's printed on, right? Like, especially they have who I've termed the best quarterback in this draft class, Michael Penix. Like, they weren't going anywhere with you, Kirk, and they had somebody who can at least raise their ceiling to a playoff team right now. Now, what really got Michael Penix, what a week for him, right? Or 2 weeks, right? You find out you're starting. I think he got engaged to his college sweetheart.
He did.
This week as well. Had a great Christmas. Got a nice bonus. Get the start. And if I don't know what it is about these new coaches. Maybe they went to the Andy Reid School of Clock Management, but what the heck was Raheem Morris doing? Like, he's not a rookie either. Like, what are you doing managing that? You got 2 timeouts, 40 seconds. Michael Penix's arm gets you to the 40-yard line, and you just let it tick, 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 tick. Like, there's 3 people here who have better clock management. Like, please hire one of us. Please hire somebody to help y'all with this clock management. Because
there's been a few people on Twitter that have been pushing that.
Like, I don't understand. But as far as the Kirk Cousins of it all, 49ers, Giants, or Jets. Those are the 3 teams, the 3 top teams that need to give that man a call. Maybe even the Buccaneers, because I don't think Baker, no disrespect to Baker Mayfield, but he's not. Kirk Cousins with those 2 receivers, I hate saying it because, I hate giving the devil their due. But if Tampa Bay had Kirk Cousins, that's a Super Bowl team because they have their 2 receivers. But, like, those are the 3 teams that need to give him a call. And the Jets, because I think we all assume that Morgan's least favorite quarterback won't be there anymore after this year. He'll probably accept the job in the new administration.
Well, real quick, I'm gonna just interject about Michael Penix, and I think the ceiling is super high for the Atlanta Falcons. So much so that I thought he may not have been ready, but I thought they made the switch a little bit too late, maybe 2-3 weeks too late. Because if you watched the game last night, even the plays that he made, you saw that the timing was off. You saw his overthrows. You saw that for the most part, him and his wide receivers weren't in sync. And I just think he's just one training camp away from just elevating the Atlanta Falcons franchise. And I think, once he gets going, I think they're going to be in great hands for several years to come.
I agree.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that and I think people were giving Atlanta a little bit of flack for drafting him because he's a little bit older, but I think that he as we were joking yesterday that he was a rookie plus quarterback, that he's not, he's 24, he's older than Bijan, he's older than there was a few other people that he was older than, but going off of that, let's look at the Week 18 schedule and kind of some intriguing matchups. We've talked about it. Some of these are stinkers, and some of them are these are going to be really good games. So I have that pulled up as well, Kyle, and I also have this Week 18 playoff scenario pulled up, trying to put all the pieces together for what we need to do. We need Steve Kornacki here. With
I love Steve,
oh, man,
by the way, whether it's politics or the NFL.
You should have called him, man.
He's superb at his job.
He is the best.
Last night, you should have called him, man.
When he sits there, him and his team, they sit right in front of me all day, and I hear them talking. I'm like, the different scenarios, and what's the funniest quick little story is yesterday we were trying to get all the different scenarios down before we went on air. As the game started to finalize, we were regrouping for what they were going to put on air for halftime, and one of the stats guys came and handed out paper to everybody, and then about 2 minutes later came and collected it all, and he was like, these are all right. I was just told they're too complicated. We need to make them simpler because there's just so many different ways that things can happen. So obviously this first game, Browns and Ravens, is a an interesting game. So,
So are just a question. The Ravens are fighting for a 3rd seed, correct? Or
yep.
is it
So
the
if
4th seed?
so Baltimore wins, okay. So we can go through this. So Baltimore
Yeah.
clinches the AFC North division title and the number 3 seed if with a Baltimore win and a Pittsburgh loss or tie. So they can win or tie the Browns, and the Pittsburgh has to lose or tie against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Which we all doubt, right? Because I mean, we saw the way Cincinnati played last night, and it wasn't pretty.
Cincinnati, I think, is probably the most interesting of all the teams because they have these, like, normally we get these things where, like, well, this team can make the playoff if this, and all this stuff happen. The stuff that Cincinnati needs to happen is not crazy. So what Cincinnati needs to clinch a playoff berth would be Cincinnati needs to win. Denver needs to lose against the Kansas City Chiefs, which, yes, like, could that be a thing that doesn't happen because they're going to sit a lot of players? Yes, but it's also the Chiefs, and somehow they just find a way to win. I don't care who's playing for them. And they need Miami to lose. And Miami is so bad that I believe that who knows? It's Miami and the Jets. Literally anything could happen in that game.
Is Aaron Rodgers playing, or are they retiring him? That's the question.
I don't know. Nothing would surprise me.
It may not even matter. The fact that Cincinnati came up from the bottom of the telephone pole, and also the fact that Miami is still alive. I mean, Tua didn't play yesterday because he's injured. Who knows what's going to happen with that franchise? And as bad as Cincinnati's defense is, I guess the Bengals are up there as far as top offenses. And some people have put Joe Burrow in the MVP conversation. So I just think those games are intriguing just because of that. They're still being alive, which is remarkable.
Facts. We were at What's Up, RC. We were talking about this yesterday at work. I was saying that I feel like this year there's way more ifs, ands, or buts about the playoff berth than in past years. I feel like even the teams that are in the playoffs, we don't necessarily know what seeding they're going to be. And I feel like this is a little bit crazier this year, and it's a little fun. So we have obviously know Minnesota and the Detroit are playing Sunday night. So that is going to determine, I believe, so let me read. It says Minnesota will clinch the NFC North division title and the NFC's number 1 seed, lone first round bye and home field advantage if Detroit beats.
So that's pretty much a winner take all.
So they need. So either way, they need to win. So either way, yeah. So whatever team wins Sunday Night Football
gets the number 1
this
seed.
is assuming that Detroit beats San Francisco tonight. So if Detroit doesn't beat San Francisco tonight,
that brings in the tie scenario or something.
Yep, that brings in the tie. So if Detroit loses to San Francisco, then Minnesota needs to win or tie, because if they don't tie, then the tie goes, I believe, to Detroit if they win. Right. It's a whole confusing thing, but pretty much if Detroit wins tonight against San Francisco, it's winner take all for the number 1 seed. If they lose, the tie comes into play, which is confusing.
And wouldn't that be the most San Francisco thing ever, to beat the Lions tonight and then screw NBC?
Yes, for us to be like, are you kidding me?
I really wanted to see a tie this weekend. I wanted to see the Bengals and the Broncos.
We've had none this year, right?
OJ's rooting for maximum chaos.
What year was it that was it last year that if the two teams tied, they both got into the playoffs? What?
I think so. I can't remember the actual game.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was.
One year the Eagles got into the playoffs with a tie, but I digress.
I think it was the Donovan McNabb game, right? But I mean, as far as these games, right? I think the Raiders Chargers is going to be interesting, just because the guy who I don't know who OJ was rooting for that will fall to the Eagles. In this past draft, I was really rooting for Brock Bowers, and so as a Brock Bowers fan, I am so mad that of all the teams to get him, it was the Raiders. And so the fact that he's going for Zach Ertz's record, if I'm the Raiders, you have nothing else to play for. And I know I have some Raiders fans in my life that want to lose. One of my best friends, she was mad that they even bothered. I don't
Well, they
know who
won
was more
themselves
pissed
out of
between.
the number one
Yeah.
pick.
Yeah, I don't know who was more pissed between Morgan and my friend Amita. Which team? Well, having their teams win when they had a chance to get Shador Sanders, but I think she was the more pissed. She was very upset about this. So I love this for Brock Bowers. I know Raiders fans will hate it because he's the new shiny thing, but Brock Bowers going for that, and obviously the Chargers could sit people too. I think this is basically when we're talking about these matches, we should just basically say who's not sitting people, right? I think the other game that's flying low key, I mean, we're not going to talk about it because, we're not, well, Morgan is like a closet Bills fan, but I mean, let's talk about the Patriots, right? Like this game is interesting just for the sheer fact of this is a game that the Patriots need to lose to guarantee the 1 seed, and between the Giants and the other teams below them, see
I
who's
don't
going to
care
give
about
them
the Patriots at all because they're not going to take a quarterback. So they're not the ones that I care as much about losing because they got their quarterback.
Right, but
Well,
I'm just saying for the sheer fact that if they I think you could correct me if I'm wrong since you're looking at the scenarios, but the Patriots need to lose this game to clinch the number 1 seed, right, in the draft. So they have to lose this game to get. Here's what I think, right? Because I think I again, I'm not a Boston sports reporter or a New England reporter. Morgan's a lot closer to this than I am for the sheer fact of location here. But I think if the Patriots get that pick, they're picking Travis. I definitely think they're picking Travis because they need, for lack of a better term, they have Drake May. And so they need some box office people because, New England Patriots fans are loyal, but I think they're tired of sucking. So
that'll be an interesting game because the Bills are, kind of in that same situation that the Eagles are in, where they and I would be shocked if Josh Allen plays with the hand broken that
some nagging injuries.
God, I hope so. That's an interesting one because I do think that the Bills are going to sit some people. I don't think they are a banged up team. And they are in the same spot where they have nothing to lose or gain or lose. Nothing. They don't affect anyone else's playoff dreams.
Locked into the 2 seed, right?
Yeah. It's the exact same situation as the Eagles. So I would be shocked if they played. Again, I would be shocked if they played Josh Allen specifically for the fact that his hand has been apparently broken since week 5. So
who's their backup? Who's their backup quarterback?
I could not.
Anybody know?
I think is it still Trubisky?
Oh, if it's Trubisky
on the Bills,
you
said the Bills, right?
I know he's on that roster somewhere. Hold on.
Yeah, it is. It's Mitch Trubisky. It's Mitch Trubisky. So,
I mean, I think in this game you might
working on that pension.
Yeah, I think in this game you'll see something that you rarely see. And I know all 3 of us, when we're not reporting, we're all not Patriots fans, but I think we're going to see a rare sight. 2 teams trying to lose, the Bills and the Patriots. The Bills, like you said, nothing to win, nothing to help them. The Patriots, everything to gain, and by winning, just because, like you said, Morgan, they don't need the number 1 seed. The number 1 draft pick. So if you're a quarterback desperate team like the Giants, like the Panthers, like the Titans, whatever you may think, like the Titans, you're going to see a bidding war. You might see something that we never see. Maybe the Giants and the Patriots. Again, I know nothing. Maybe the Giants and the Patriots might do business. And I don't know what'll hurt you more, Morgan, if you get Shador Sanders, but you're helping, but the Patriots, but you win the Super Bowl and the Patriots help you maybe go to another Super Bowl. I don't know what'll hurt you more. I guess that's a good question. What'll hurt you more? Trading with the Patriots to get the number 1 pick to get Shador? Or,
if we don't have the number 1 pick, I really don't think they're going to stress for one. I think honestly they'll find a bridge quarterback and they'll go for Arch Manning the next year. I think that would be my what they probably are going to do.
Even with Shador Sanders sending, I know you probably saw this or heard about it. He was wearing Giants colored cleats. Like he's basically sending y'all the SOS to come and get him, right?
If it's going the same way, he'll probably be going by then. But I want to. I think it's intriguing just because Atlanta lost last night. How their path to the playoffs. They
Yeah,
have to
so
win and hope the Buccaneers lose to the Saints, which I think
Which
is
could,
a tall task.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They
that's
the
true.
Saints are the Saints. I they had fire in them when what's his face Rizzy was first promoted or hired or whatever,
Those
and
first
then
couple weeks, right?
for the first couple weeks they looked good. We were like, okay, this is fun, and then they just went back to being the Saints. So
Yeah. Mhm.
you
This will
know,
be this is an interesting week. If you're like a scenario head, is Morgan, did we reach all your scenarios? I
yeah, we
see the
talked about all of
Seahawks and
them.
Rams. Don't the Seahawks need to do something to win too? They need to win and
Oh
hope
gosh,
people lose too.
it went
Or no,
away.
if the Seahawks aren't on your paper, it's all good. I don't want to make you work even more.
I don't know. It went away. I refreshed and now I can't find it
Seahawks and the
anymore.
Rams, right?
Yeah.
At the yeah, and I
Yeah.
think whoever wins the NFC South, that's the 4 seed or the three is at the three or the no, it's the 4 seed.
That's the 4 seed because the 3 seed would be whoever wins the South. I think, right?
It's the messiest playoff year
Yeah.
in
In history. Yeah.
Because literally
okay,
one and
I
eight
got
gets
it
you
back.
in.
I got it back. Sorry. So you were asking about
The Seahawks. They need to win. They need to beat the Rams, right? And again, the Rams should be sitting people too because they have an old team. So, right?
Well, the
The
Seahawks
Seahawks
are
I
have
think
eliminated.
that the Seahawks are out.
okay. They're out.
Yeah.
Because then they need to win against the Bears. Then they need something else to happen these next 2 weeks.
Now
Am
they
I wrong?
because of the outcome of Washington
Washington,
Oh
Atlanta, I
yes,
believe.
yes,
Atlanta
yes.
that
That's right. That's
knocked
right.
everybody else out. So
Yeah.
really
So
the only scenario.
Atlanta needs an Atlanta win and a Tampa Bay loss for them to clinch the NFC South division title.
Yeah, all the wild card
Yes.
teams are set.
Are
It's just a
set. And
matter
Yes.
then
of seeding.
Tampa Bay
Yeah.
needs to win. So they need to win or tie against New Orleans, and they need Atlanta to lose or tie against the Panthers.
Okay.
Crazy. There's so much stuff
Yeah.
going on.
Crazy. I love it though.
Yeah.
I love
It's
that.
I
so
do
fun.
too. I do
It's
too.
so fun.
Especially when your team is not involved in any of it. Like the Eagles aren't involved. It wasn't like last year where the Eagles are like,
It's like
Jay, when we
reading
were like,
I love it because it's close to Christmas. It's like reading the 12 Days of Christmas when you go over the scenarios. Because then
Yeah,
you
you're
just
like,
say,
God, it
and a
really
partridge in
is.
a pear tree.
It
Yeah.
really is. It really is. Speaking of, the Christmas Day NFL game slate, we had Steelers, Chiefs, we had, that was to be on, Steelers, Chiefs, and then Texans, Ravens. Obviously to me, I tweeted about this. I got a lot of, I know Morgan and OJ, you both saw me getting a lot of hitting them, making really, really kicking the NFL fans while they were down. Because to me, right, as the basketball head on this podcast, I'm just going to put this aside. I thought this was great for me as somebody who, like, I'm broadcasting on my laptop right now. I had the Netflix games on my laptop, and on the big screen behind me was my NBA games. So it was great if you were a 2-screen person like I did, right? And I think that both of those games, obviously for the Houston Ravens game, unless you were a Ravens or a Houston fan, you were probably, if you had no affiliation to either of those teams, you were probably watching for Beyonce, right? So, that game obviously did.
I mean, at that point, the score was like 30-2 or whatever.
Right. So congratulations.
So
It's like, come on,
Texans,
Beyonce, let's go.
Forgetting the lowest score
waiting.
ever. I think this is the first time in history somebody scored 2 points during the Christmas Day game, right? Like, so I think that was the
any team has just scored
any
2
game
points.
for that matter.
Yeah,
It's
so
been a while.
I think these games were they were what they were. You get Netflix can't choose what games they have, but I do think you got to give a shout out to Netflix for the way that they broadcasted them. They did a great job. I know a lot of people were nervous after the fight.
I think it was them and CBS Sports that CBS Sports produced.
I believe CBS was their big conglomerate.
I wonder if that's going to be a year-to-year thing, or will they alternate with the networks?
Probably.
So what I am like, maybe. I think that a lot of people weren't terribly sad to not have Christmas games. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
I didn't hear
Yeah,
many
Like
I
who
people
won it
complaining.
Thursday night before, right?
I didn't
Yeah.
hear many people complaining within the building about us not having them. I know next year at NBA, the NBC
NBA.
will have NBA, so we'll have games already
Oh,
happening
that's right.
Yeah.
on Christmas. So I don't know if that means that we will try to get a football
That's
game as
going. Oh,
well, or if we would.
that's closer than I thought. We're
It
Yeah,
already
the
in
is.
NFL,
2025.
the Christmas game, the Christmas games, the Christmas NFL game will probably end up. If you're NBC, hint hint, and you're a marketing person and you're playing it right, you should make that Christmas Day game if you get one. Is because it's a Thursday night. If you get one, should be a Peacock exclusive. Somebody pay me. It should be a Peacock exclusive because then you could have the NBA games on
Well,
the
it does
NBC,
fall on a
which are
Thursday.
yeah.
Shouldn't Amazon have that exclusive?
Yeah, they should have the night game, but you never know how they're working. Maybe they'll do two because you know. But
Possible.
to me, yeah, to me though, I think these games were like Morgan said what they were. But I just think that for the NFL, right? You have Thanksgiving that falls on your window. Christmas is kind of hard, as I tweeted. I know you both probably saw this. I think that if the NFL wants to like actually compete with the NBA, I know they don't. They're just throwing a game on Christmas and then relying on the popularity of the NFL. But I think they actually want to give us good quality, because I do like football, like a good quality football game. Then whoever winds up playing on Christmas needs to get 2 bye weeks. Because for me, if you really want a good competitive Christmas football game and not 31-2, what was the because Kansas City Pittsburgh wasn't competitive either for after halftime. So like if you really want the games to be competitive, don't put your teams that are playing on Christmas in a Saturday game the week before. Like
Yeah, I think this year was just all screwed up because of the Wednesday. It's super tough.
Yeah.
They were trying to do the thing where they can give these players as much of rest as they can. I don't know why they didn't just do a doubleheader on Thursday, which I thought would have made more sense, but I don't make the schedule. And I think it's hard to say when they made these schedules, you would have thought, I would have thought at the beginning of the season that Kansas City Houston would have been a great game,
Yeah.
or Ravens Houston would have been a great game, but
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't anticipate.
you can't anticipate, and
quality of the games, right? Like again, I'm saying
Well,
again, like you said, you kind of can't anticipate that, but I think you could anticipate, right? If I have a team playing on Saturday, 4 teams playing on Saturday, and I got those same 4 teams then playing 3 days later, it's probably going to be bad football.
But that was but what I'm saying is that the only reason they had them playing on Saturday was because that was their solution to not having them play Sunday and then Wednesday. They knew they had to do that, and then they get a super long rest afterwards. I think that luckily that only happens once every 7 years, 8 years that we're going to have Wednesday. Wednesday is just all around a tough day for Christmas for many, many reasons when it comes to work, just for scheduling breaks for school. Wednesday is just kind of the hardest day for them to have it. When you get any other day, you can kind of bump it on to the weekend. Like I said, I would have had those teams play Thursday night, but I had 2 Thursday night games that week, and then had those teams play on Wednesday. I think you would have gotten better football because then you still almost have a week off. But it is what it is. I think they saw from their mistakes, and hopefully
we're definitely going to get. We're definitely going to get a Dallas game. But go ahead, OJ.
Well, I'll say this in closing, and we can complain all day, all night about bad football, but football NFL fans and the Shield knows this. I've seen them work. When they've come here for the draft, when they come here, they're here for NFL kickoff. When I can see it, I see how they take over a city, everything. So the way the Shield thinks and what they know, and I know this for a fact. They could literally, and I know you can attest to this, Morgan, they could literally broadcast games on a Fisher-Price device and people will watch.
I saw your tweet on that.
And they would have more ratings than any other
anything on TV.
Anything on TV.
By far.
But I think
they notice.
Football is king. And it is would take a lot for that to change.
Yep.
We talked about this, Kyle, 1 second. We talked about this at the beginning of the season. One of the reasons why I was happy with and Netflix getting involved was that I think that the more conglomerates that are doing football, the better the game is going to be for the viewers, because like you just said, we know that NFL, no matter what it's broadcast on, is going to be watched. No matter how horrible the broadcast is, people are going to watch it, right? So if now we have all of these different conglomerates fighting for these big primetime games, well, now NFL has more options. Yes, of course, that means the NFL is going to start getting more money, which do they need more money? No. But, you know, they at some point still are going to be like, look, if you are doing so bad that this person is doing better, well, we can't have this. And everybody's trying to one up each other. And that makes it a better viewing experience for the consumers, which I think is a good thing, rather than because, and I think that it could get stagnant, because it is always going to be king, no matter what's on. Football is king. Football, you know, and no matter what level you're at, football is just always king, no matter where you are in the country. And so having more places to broadcast it on and more competition is going to be good, because it keeps places from just doing crappy broadcasts.
Yeah, and I want to say this also. The NBA had a great day on Christmas. I mean, they I want to say they lucked up, but they had very good matchups. I mean, and I think the gem was the Sixers versus Boston. I mean, and also, you know, Lakers and Golden State ended up, everybody was going to watch that anyway, right? And I just think we still have to decipher, okay, the NFL is going to have the majority of fans, but the NBA fans, the people who watch the NBA, they're going to watch the NBA, especially if their marquee teams are going to be on. Their ratings have suffered and all, but I think if you put the bread and butter in prime time or on Christmas, I think the majority of the fans that they expect to watch are going to watch, because I think the NBA still has their tradition of Christmas where they can keep going year after year.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You know, I mean, we watch, I don't normally watch NBA, and we watched NBA until NFL came on, but we watched the first game. We wanted to see Steph Castle play. So we were like, cool, like it was the first game of the day. We had that on. It was great. And, you know, and you're in a household that has multiple televisions, why not throw the NBA onto the Christmas tradition that everybody loves?
Yeah, and it's Wemby and the Knicks. So there you go. You have a draw there.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset, right? And I'm not downing anybody for being football first or basketball first, whatever. I just think that, you know, for me, like, as somebody who likes football and basketball, like, I just think that I feel like I was more entertained outside of the Beyonce thing. If you look at it in totality, and I'll get into this more when we touch on the NBA, I just think, to me, as somebody who didn't have to report on the games, wasn't paid to put an article out there on either one of those games, I think that, you know, for me, as just an unbiased viewer who didn't have to work or anything, I feel like I was better served quality and entertainment wise with the NBA schedule than I was with the, like, you know, did I leave Christmas Day NFL thinking anything other than the scores were great and Beyonce? No, that was it. Like, you know, I looked at the score of, like, you know, and I thought that, you know, for me, I think that, no, I'll just speak for myself. Like, last year, I watched the Nickelodeon broadcast of the Raiders Kansas Chiefs game just because of nostalgia, and then I turned on the NBA right after that game. But I just think that there's an entertainment factor when, like, you can put a game on a Nickelodeon as opposed to, like, for lack of a better term, because all three of us are adults, but an adult broadcast. I think there's something that was there that the NFL kind of lost this Christmas. But that's just me. But they had Beyonce, so whatever. Everybody who loves Beyonce was served. So
yeah. OJ, you gotta leave us.
You're dipping us.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know staying a little longer than you said. We really, really appreciate it. Enjoy the new year. Enjoy the bowl games. Enjoy some basketball. And by the time you're back on here, we'll either be closer to crowning a Super Bowl king, or we'll have already had one. So
there you go. Yep. Glad
we'll definitely, anytime. You know, if the Eagles are making a run for it, we'll definitely have you back on before that, because I can't talk Eagles with Kylan by myself on here. So.
Okay, I'll be glad to always help you out, Morgan. All the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And just good luck through your pregnancy stages and everything. And Happy New Year.
Yeah, next time.
Thank you, Kylan.
I might be a mom next time. You never know.
There you go. Yes.
never know
great
if he's
teammate,
gonna.
great person, man. Great to see you, man, and have a good holiday, man. Enjoy.
Happy New Year to
Happy
you all.
holiday to you and your family.
Thank you so
See
much.
ya.
All right,
Yeah,
guys,
man.
we're
Thank you.
gonna head away from the Christmas games, and we're gonna talk about the college world a little bit.
Yeah,
As we
hold
know,
on.
this is kind of. Oh,
No, go ahead. I'm just pulling it
okay.
up. Go ahead.
As you know, we are in the midst of college bowl season. We are in the midst of the playoffs, and as always, it has come back to the NCAA just having terrible timing and rules on everything, and making sure that all of these players have to put in their transfer portal before the season is over. So I don't even think the transfer portal should be able to open until after the championship. I don't know what they need to do to make that happen, but I think a lot of people are feeling that way, and I think a lot of the players are feeling that way. I think that, I don't think that the backup quarterback for Penn State wants to be announcing that he's leaving before their team makes a run for it. God forbid their quarterback gets hurt. That's not what he wants. He wants to be there and to play for his team, but he also wants the opportunity to start and to gain reps before he declares for the draft. So it's them being put in a terrible position by the all-powering
NCAA.
NCAA that thinks they know everything or anything, and they don't, and it's very frustrating. And it's just you feel again, because in the you go back to it. Yeah, of course, okay, whatever. These kids are making a lot of money, but they are kids, and this is their future that they are worried about, and that's I don't know. It's just frustrating to them. And I think that everyone agrees. I don't think I know anybody that's like, no, the transfer portal should be where it is. Like, no,
I don't disagree. I think we're both in agreement on this. Everybody knows that I'm always pro the NCAA is stupid. So I know that most of this is probably them trying to match with academic dates. But I mean,
of course it is. And I think that that's the big thing, is that they want to get the transfer portal so that you can start you can come in and start the second semester where it is. Okay, fine. Then move the football season 2 weeks up, start the games before the school year starts, and do it like that. That would be another solution.
Because that's what soccer and all the other fall sports do anyway. That's not basketball or lacrosse. So yeah, I'm in agreement that they either need to do that, or at the risk of making athletes sound, and I know in college obviously it's a little bit different than high school, but giving athletes even more of an academic advantage than they already have. But in this case, I feel like because this is something different, maybe you need to give a 2-week extension for the athletes who may be in the playoffs or something to transfer or get their NIL, which we'll get into later with the Florida State thing. Get the NIL thing dealt with. But yeah, I'm in agreement. We can make this a really short segment as far as this goes. We're both in agreement. The NCAA is stupid. College football players, and for that matter, any athlete, right? Once your season is over, you should be able to think about transferring and not have it interfere with your academic future and everything else. But yeah, there definitely needs to be a compromise here. But moving along to what's Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying. Yep. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, moving right along to close not close this out, but close this portion of college football out. Football segments. Because y'all won't be having many of this where football is dominating our A, B, and C and D blocks. But college football playoffs round 2. We start tomorrow with my one of my favorite schools, Penn State versus Boise State, tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Morgan, I think this is just about sometimes, as you know, football is just a simple sport. Right now, we have the best running back and maybe the best offensive player in the country, Ashton Genty, going up against Penn State's vaunted defense. I think in this case, defense wins championships. And I think Penn State, I've said it before, I think Penn State is the most complete team in this playoffs. I know Oregon is the best team, but I think Penn State has it working right now. And I think that evidenced by the fact that this is going first and not going on Thursday, I think people are basically giving it that this will probably be a good game. This is no knock on Boise State, but I think I have Penn State winning this one pretty handily. I don't know if it'll be 50-3 like it was against SMU, but I think that I think Penn State They're going to be used to that Boise State cold. I don't think the blue field will intimidate them. I think Penn State wins this game. Probably I'd say 40 to 20 to 24. I think Penn State defense will shut Genty down. I think he'll have his highlights. Hopefully he doesn't pull a Cam Ward and leave the game in the first half. But I think that Ashton Genty will have a good game, but I think that Penn State will shut him down. And once that happens, I think Boise State will struggle to find the offense. And so I think, Penn State 41-21, and then we'll get I think a good game of Penn State Notre Dame, because I don't really have any faith in Georgia without Carson Beck. So let me just run this through and then I'll let you go. Yeah. Penn State 41-24. That might be a little bit high scoring. I know Morgan will probably hit y'all with the 35-20 because she likes low scoring games. Notre Dame, Georgia. I think that this will be, if Georgia had Carson Beck and he didn't just basically have Tommy John surgery and then immediately declare for the draft after having the shoulder surgery, I would say that Georgia probably would beat Notre Dame. But without a quarterback, I don't know how good that backup quarterback is. I don't think he's really that good. So I think Notre Dame pulls off the upset here. Notre Dame, Penn State. I think Penn State will win. And then I think you'll have, Oregon, Ohio State. I think Ohio State, they're playing okay right now. But I still think they're the same Ohio State team that once you punch them in the mouth, they'll fold. So I think Oregon will beat them up pretty handily. It won't be close like the NBC game was. It won't be going back and forth. I think Oregon wins this game pretty handily. Score-wise, I'd probably say 35-20 Oregon, because I just think that, Ohio State's defense will have nothing for Dylan Gabriel. Texas, Arizona State, I just think Texas. I think Quinn Ewers will do a good job. Well, excuse me, Morgan. I think Arizona State, Texas. I think this might be the best game of the week. I think Texas pulls it off, probably in a 2 overtime thriller. I think Texas will just have enough. I think you'll have the archmatic legacy game here. So I think it'll end up being Texas, Oregon. And I think, like I said, it's going to be Oregon, Penn State in the championship game. And although it's going to hurt me to pick against, my home state, I don't know, man. I'm not ready to do that yet, but I think it'll be Oregon, Penn State championship. Morgan?
The game that I'm intrigued by is the Notre Dame Georgia game. I think with Carson Beck out, Georgia's going to be struggling a little bit. I think a Penn State Notre Dame game would be amazing, and I don't actually know who would win that game. I think Notre Dame, they look really, really good this year. I could see either one of those teams kind of pulling it out. Oregon, Ohio State. I think Oregon's going to beat Ohio State again. I'm not exactly. It's hard to beat a team like that twice in a season. But I think sometimes Ryan Day is allergic to winning big games, and this feels like a big game. And then I don't really have a good feel on the Arizona State game. I think
don't either, but
I'm gonna win.
I was just about to say my only thing, kind of like you, is that Texas is the more talented team. I don't want to down.
Yeah, I just haven't watched a lot of Arizona State football this season. Right. Maybe I should have been. I don't know, but I just, full transparency, haven't. So I would put
only thing I know about them is their quarterback is a baller. He literally had a quote that said, "No one is better." He didn't actually say this, but essentially the thing about his quote is, "There's no quarterback better than me." So that's what you're working with at Arizona State. So
there you go.
I'm on the mindset that when you put a quote out like that, you better back it up. So
yeah,
and so that's what I'm with you. I just think Texas, and if Arizona State wins, then clearly, just by ranking, they're clearly the better team because they're a 4 and Texas is a 5. But I just think Texas has more talent. On paper, Texas should win. And that's what I'm going with.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that's kind of, we'll see. Enjoy the games tomorrow. I think it's going to be a fun day for games. Like, that's kind of what we're doing tomorrow. We don't really have any other plans on New Year's besides watching the games. And I think that's kind of how a lot of people are. I'm getting a facial and watching the games. So that's, what I am, I'm doing. So I'm going to Glow Bar. Shout out if you've never been. Amazing. Your skin looks flawless afterwards.
Okay.
Helping
All
with the pregnancy,
pregnancy glow.
skin. Yeah. So moving on to, we have not talked about, since we haven't been here since Travis Hunter won the Heisman. I think that this was kind of expected. We talked about it. We both assumed he would win. The other quarterbacks were not the running back and the two quarterbacks that were nominated were extraordinarily talented as well. I think any other year, is Ashton Genty, I think it is.
Yeah, it goes to Genty, but Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter just had a year that was extraordinary, and I think a lot of people like to see non-quarterbacks win this award. And Travis Hunter is a first-round pick on both offense or defense, whatever he decides to primarily play in the NFL, which you don't see very often. And so good for him. Good for Deion. Good for Shador and that whole Colorado team. And good for Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter has been through a lot with an injury, I believe, his rookie year. Or his freshman year, and
depending on how you feel, I don't really care about this, but depending on how you feel, I know you can see his girlfriend too. Like most people are like, break up with her, and I'm just like, guys, like that's we don't need to get into the real.
I just don't feel like it's anybody's business to decide about. God, if she had jumped up, if she'd been the first person to jump up and squeeze him, people would have said, let his mom say congratulations to him first. And because she was, you're never going to win with trolls on the internet. So good for Travis Hunter, his family, in Colorado. Do you have anything different to say?
I think, it went to the best player. I think that Ashton Genty was the best offensive player, but if you want the best complete player, Travis Hunter fits that bill. Congratulations to him. And like you said, congrats to Deion. And I really want to give, Deion a shout out because, last year I felt like, and, I pointed out this before to Morgan, it felt like we were always talking about Deion's antics. And this year he really calmed down and let it be about Shador and Travis's last dance. And unfortunately it ended kind of bad for them. Postseason success isn't really what Deion's teams really did. He struggled with that at Jackson State and is still struggling with it at Colorado. Those of you who probably saw that belt to behind. Y'all know what the other one is. B2A kind of whooping that BYU gave to them. I think BYU kind of felt disrespected because everybody was basically, and if you watch the broadcast like I did, it kind of felt like the way ESPN was doing it was basically like, they're basically playing some bums from Utah. They're going to make the Mormon bums lay down, and that's not what it turned out to be. The Mormon bums put some B2A on Colorado, and and you want to look at
their Jewish quarterback. Their quarterback's Jewish, which I love.
Oh, for real? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
He's the quarterback of a Mormon school is Jewish. Look at that. So
part of the fam. Part of the fam. We love it. Some of these bowl games were exciting. We had some fun. I know the Toledo game was nuts. I don't know if you watched that, Kylan. Toledo celebrating twice before they got to actually celebrate for real in a 7 overtime game. And there was a few of these. The Pittsburgh game was crazy overtime. It was fun. Bowl games are exciting. I know JMU, repping them, won their first bowl game ever, which was super exciting. This was a few weeks ago, though.
Shout out to Syracuse for winning on Friday.
Syracuse won theirs. UConn won their bowl game, which was super cool against UNC.
And super unexpected.
yeah. UConn is their football team is trying to
with Jim Moore and not Jim Moore.
They have they're winning. I believe this record was like the best record in a couple decades or something. So good for them. It's always fun to see the bowl games. Do they matter? Yeah, maybe not, but it's exciting.
They matter to the schools that weren't in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
For Syracuse and JMU, this could be a building block, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Getting to play in these postseason games is always exciting. So let's move on to some coaches hiring. So we talked about this a few weeks ago, but
it was a rumor, right? When we
it was
talked
a
about it,
rumor
it
a few
wasn't
weeks
official.
ago. And if you might have stronger opinions on this, I'm kind of okay to clump these two together. So Michael Vick was hired as coach of the Norfolk State University, and Deshaun Jackson was hired as the football coach for the Delaware State University. It's a new time where ex players are being
given a chance at
given
HBCUs.
a chance to coach. I don't necessarily know if I would want my kid to be coached by Michael Vick. That's a personal preference. I totally understand that he has made reprimands with the things that he's done. I just, still not my favorite human being on the face of the planet, and that's okay. And I know he's grown and learned, and he's probably a wonderful human being at this point in life. But good for him. I hope that he does well. That's kind of all I have. Deshaun Jackson, I think probably, has been around football. I don't know how to say that, in more recent years, I guess, than Michael Vick.
Yeah, I mean, he had that broadcasting. I think Fox Sports tried him out as a broadcaster, but that didn't really work just because Deshaun, somebody that's watched him and is a fan of him. He's kind of rough around the edges, but Deshaun, it's a good fit for both of them. Dell State, because it's a area that, obviously, being a former Eagle, that he's familiar with, Northeast. And he gets to add some prestige to these football programs. Obviously, like Michael Vick gets to go home, Norfolk State. In Virginia, gets to do something where he was very famous for at Virginia Tech. And who knows if they'll do well or this is a stepping stone to something else. But good for both of them. Good for these schools.
Yeah,
getting some more, because it's what it's all about, right? You get a high profile quarterback coach, and coaches in this case, and you get more money to your NIL collective. Obviously, obviously I don't know how much this combo of younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha really values having Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson come to their house, just because a lot of these players that they're going to be talking to weren't born yet and only know them from Madden and highlights. But it's a good recruiting tool for the schools. And as far as Michael Vick, I think he deserves another chance, and he's getting that chance. We'll see how it goes. Getting to go home and make a difference in Virginia. Deshaun Jackson, good for both of them, and hopefully it works out. I don't know if they'll both end up being like the Deion Sanders, the Eddie Georges, or any of those, but we'll see. I mean, everybody deserves to start somewhere, and so hopefully it goes well for both of them, and they don't end up like Ed Reed getting cut, during Christmas. So hopefully it works out for them. So moving right along, though, the basketball.
We're gonna move to basketball. I'm gonna give Kylan 10 minutes to go through all of his basketball things. I have followed absolutely none of this while the end of football season is happening. It is my absolute crazy busy season right now, and all I can think about is football. Haven't even been able to watch hockey, even though Ovechkin came back a few nights ago, scored 2 goals since he came back.
I promise y'all, I keep encouraging her to do Morgan's Hockey Corner. So it's coming back.
And I keep saying when football gets over, when maybe once, it's just never ending this year, because college football playoffs is just elongating everything that has to do with football. But I promise you, hey, I do not have to really worry about the draft this year, as I am, I'm pregnant and will not be at the draft or at the combine. So I will be able to focus. We will do some hockey stuff when we get into it, but I'm going to give Kylan 10 minutes and he's going to go off because I know nothing, and Kylan's going to talk about it. All right. I'm actually literally turning my mic off. I have to do something for work while Kylan is doing this.
All right. So Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton were traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, as RC pointed out, for basically 2 empty pizza boxes and then ham sandwiches of second-round picks. D'Angelo Russell gets to go back to the Nets. So I think this was a move. This is basically a move if you're a basketball head, just because Dorian Finney-Smith is great. But if you watch the Christmas Day game, which I know Morgan only watched the afternoon game, so good for her. She talked about that. But Dorian Finney-Smith is basically like your your Anthony Davis replacement. For those that don't know, Anthony Davis went down with like an ankle injury during the Christmas game. So that's what this is more. Dorian Finney-Smith is basically a forward center. So this is basically like, Anthony Davis ensuring Shake Milton is a point guard that probably is more of a traditional point guard than D'Angelo Russell. So that gives them another ball handler, somebody who can really consistently shoot the three if it calls for. 76ers fans are really familiar with Shake Milton because that's where he did his formative years here in Philly. Great player, just needs a chance and should get a lot more consistent run with the Lakers. This is a okay move if you're a Lakers fan. It definitely makes it seem like Rob Pelinka is trying to keep the ship afloat as best as he can with RC. So basically addition by subtraction, right? Like I didn't think D'Angelo Russell was doing bad for y'all, but the Lakers needed a more traditional point guard, and they got that now, and now they have some Anthony Davis insurance. Because the big men that they had in front of him were also injured. So you kind of needed a younger. The only problem with Dorian Finney-Smith is I think he's like older, and by older I mean 29, 30. But it's a good keep the ship afloat trade. So next one, what contending team should try to get D'Lo? I think that D'Angelo Russell should be sought after if you are in need of a guard. I think the 76ers should look at him. If he does get bought out, which I think a lot of us expect him to get bought out, I don't think he will stay going back with the Nets. So I think he will wind up being somebody's a great six-man, great backup point guard for somebody. I think that somebody should be the 76ers, especially if he's going to be pretty cheap. They have an open roster spot, but I think if you're the 76ers, if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves, Morgan knows if I'm not trying to get somebody to come to Philly, I'm trying to get somebody to go to Minnesota to save Anthony Edwards. So I'm of the mindset that's if you're the Sixers, the Timberwolves, the Celtics can't really have him. The Knicks, so some of these contending teams probably need to give him a call. The Milwaukee Bucks. There's a couple of teams that really need some D'Angelo Russell help and what he can bring. And then moving right along to he's definitely a role player, no longer a starter, especially if he ends up on a contending team. Yeah, I agree with you, RC. Moving right along, the Philadelphia 76ers, they got final city council approval for their downtown stadium. And my reaction to this is, told you so. Morgan knows I said a lot that some inside baseball here. Like I didn't know much, but one thing that I did know was how politics work in Philadelphia as a native Philadelphian. And so what this turned out to be is Comcast versus the unions, and the unions won this one. This kind of turned into like, Chinatown versus everybody. They kind of made the gentrification arguments. Then they were kind of making like the borderline racial arguments here with like, we don't want those kinds of people here. The neighborhood, again, not being derogatory. Locally, this is what we call it. The neighborhood was out there saying something similar to what Chinatown was saying. We don't want those. Essentially, we don't want those folks majority. And what, if you read between the lines, majority of the Sixers fans are black. So, read between the lines there. And then, it really wasn't a soluble argument, and by the time, they came together and kind of understood that this was going through no matter what, they kind of came to the table too late. At one point, it was a $50 million CBA. Then it became a $63+ million CBA. And a lot of stuff got taken out because council and Chinatown got greedy. There was stuff for the school district that would have definitely benefited them. But, at the end of the day, it was as the city of Philadelphia, no one would sense, no matter how progressive, conservative, or liberal you are, no one would sense is turning down $1.3 billion of private money. That's a lot of money to build a stadium, to revitalize a dead mall that's like on the edge of Chinatown, but isn't really in Chinatown. And like the study said, a lot of people didn't want to admit this, but if somebody was reporting on it and watching it, like Chinatown's going to be gentrified because Philadelphia is a very cheap big city where your dollar goes very far in, and a lot of people don't know that. But it's getting to be very popular that you can afford a lot here in Philly, and because it's a pretty cheap city to live in. And people are coming. And so Chinatown's going to get gentrified regardless, one way or the other. And the argument was kind of, that's what it was. And in a 12-4 vote, it went through. So the Sixers will have their new shiny new stadium in 2031. Chinatown now is preserving some lawyers, so we'll look for them to try to get an injunction. It won't stop anything. I'm just going to tell you, I know nothing, but these fights become pretty useless after a while. Like at this point, all they have is the legal argument, and I don't really know what legal ground they have to stay on because it's a private mall. The Sixers have basically bought the property already. The city is selling the rest of the city property to the Sixers to lease. So it's basically a done deal. There's nothing really you can do. You can make some fancy legal argument, but this thing will be built. So Sixers will have a brand new shiny downtown stadium very, very soon. The South Philly stadiums will not have the Sixers and probably not the Eagles anymore. Hint, hint. Don't know anything, but there's some things working there. Rumors are flying that the Eagles will not be in the link much longer. So do the Sixers deserve a new stadium? I mean, this is a funny argument that you heard a lot of people make, whether they're sports fans or non-sports fans, that the Sixers haven't done anything. I think a lot of people like this is basically when you understand that Morgan and I and a lot of other of our sports enthusiasts, we live in a bubble, right? Because a lot of the ultra casuals who don't really watch basketball or football or any sport, they don't really know anything. So they try to make this an economic argument when really it's a economics and sports argument. Like, the Phillies sucked when they got Citizens Bank Park. They weren't doing anything. They didn't win a World Series until 2008. When they got the vet, they also sucked. So making the arguments of a team needs to actually be good to get a new stadium, then nobody would be getting a new stadium. Like the Jaguars are about to get a new stadium. They haven't done anything for anybody in a long time. Like if being a successful franchise was a prerequisite to get a stadium, nobody would get a stadium. So I'm of the mindset that the Sixers do deserve a new stadium. Like it's the classic argument, right? Like I've rented, Morgan has rented. Like if you rent something, eventually you want to own it, right? You want it to be your own. And that was the Sixers' best argument here, was that they rent the Wells Fargo Center. They're the best team there. It's them and the Flyers and the Villanova, but they, objectively, they are the best team, and they were not being like, offered the main contender role of what that guarantees you. And so they left, and Comcast has been doing everything they can to not lose all the money, that the Sixers generate, and now they're about to lose it. So, good for them. But moving right along, the Sixers beat the Boston Celtics and the Utah Jazz. So this game kind of went back and forth, but the Sixers got the highlight, went the victory, 8-3, 9-3 now in their last 12 games. The run has started, y'all. I told y'all the run was about to start. They're getting healthy. Joel Embiid is back, probably not playing a lot of back-to-backs, which is overblown, by the way, by a lot of y'all. But this is what happens when Joel Embiid is in there. The team does well. He raises the temperature. They're a championship contending team, as OJ and I talked about off air. And this is what they are, man. They're built. I tweeted this out. I know Morgan probably saw it. The 76ers are built to beat the Boston Celtics and beat the New York Knicks. Those are the two teams they were constructed specifically to beat. And those are the teams that they have to compete with. Don't be surprised if you see the Sixers in the finals this year. I told people at the barbershop that I was at, shout out to Reggie's Barbershop, but I guarantee to a couple of Celtics fans, Morgan heard me, she was on the show when I guaranteed this, and they made my guarantee. They made me look smart. I try to tell y'all, Morgan knows when I say something, better have your ears perked up, man. So that's what it is, man. The run has started. 9-3 in their last 12 games, playing the Trailblazers tonight. But they are on the run, and they're about to shoot up. They'll probably be, OJ and I were talking about this off air. I fully expect them to be a top 5, top 4 seed by the time the All-Star break rolls around. I do think they need another role player. I just said either D'Angelo Russell, Jordan Clarkson, or they need to get Lonnie Walker the fourth. I said this about Gorshon Yabusele during the Olympics. I think Lonnie Walker the fourth, he's from Reading, Pennsylvania, which is like 45 minutes to an hour away from here. He needs to come home, just like Saquon. Come home, Lonnie, and come be a role player for your hometown, for your home state Sixers, and help and be a piece, man. Because I think that's what the Sixers are missing, that punch off the bench. They had it with Jared McCain, that he got injured, and so they need it again. So moving right along, the 76ers versus the Trailblazers. I think the Sixers should win this game. If they play around, they might lose it. But they messed around and still beat the Jazz. So I think that they should beat the Trailblazers pretty handily. It's about the rebounding battle. Got to win the rebounding battle. Got to hit 3-point shots. They should win this game pretty handily. For those of you that will stay up and watch the game, they're not doing an article on it like I am. This game should be over probably by 11 o'clock so you can get to bed and get ready to enjoy your New Year's Eve plans. The NBA Christmas game slate brings ratings increase. I told this, I talked to Morgan about this before. Like, I have always said as a basketball person, like, the NBA does not have a product problem. They have an accessibility problem, right?
Yeah.
All of their games are either on ESPN or you need to have League Pass. So, like, for a generation, and I'm a millennial, I still have, y'all see the box behind me, I still have my cable box, but there's not many people that have that. There's a lot of cord cutting going on.
Yeah, we don't have one.
I know Morgan.
We have
Morgan
YouTube TV, which is like kind of like cable. But
Right. So, like, I think it's an accessibility problem. And what do you know? The WNBA found this out when you put your games on basic television, ABC, Channel 6, if you're in Philly, like ABC, whatever your ABC affiliate is, whatever region you're in, Disney Plus, you put your games on stuff people have. Lo and behold, 6, 7, 8, 10 million people watch your games. Like, you get like what the NFL got, like, you're competing with the NFL because you get 7 million, 5 million, 4 million, 3 million over 5 games. So you basically got 15, 25 million people, right? And that's what the NFL got in 2 games, right? And the NBA did that in 5 games. And over 83% increase. I think what the NBA has is a media problem. And I will get to that in a minute. But they have a media problem. And what I mean is the NFL media, as Morgan knows, they overhype the games. No knock on Morgan. This is what they do. She knows this. They overhype the games. It's really only about every week 4 or 5 games that matter, for real. And those games literally involve Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings. I'm just going over this season, but it's really only about 8 of the 30 teams that matter. And so you have a bunch of media people who overhype football and make you think that all these games matter when they don't. So it's only about like barely 10 of them that matter every week, right? I mean, you're kind of seeing this now, right? Morgan went over all the scenarios. They give the game away at the end of the season, but that's what it's always been. I tweeted this, right? The NFL has a very, very good media infrastructure, right? Like, their media, you've got Mike Florio, you've got Chris Sims, you got all these people that make y'all think all these football games matter when they actually don't. So, like, and that's no knock on them. They love football. Morgan works with them personally. I've worked with them and worked on their content. Like, they are what you see is what you get with both of them. They really are that maniacal about football, right? They really are. Like, they live, eat, sleep, and breathe football. That's all they eat, sleep, and breathe. They try to get them to do some college basketball content. Now, Chris Sims can talk about a little bit more than Mike Florio. But, I mean, other than that Pro Bowl, that's what you get. Like, they are football-only type people. That's what they are. So, I'm of the mindset that, you have that, in comparison to Matthew Berry and people who he has wrought, bringing up the fantasy. And, like, this is what it is. They have the media infrastructure, and people love fantasy football. That's what makes people watch these irrelevant games. As well. They need the fantasy football and the betting. But I just think that, like, you have a very, very tight media infrastructure with football, whereas you have a very, very loose one with the NBA. And this is not any knock on the NBA. I'm not saying that they need to be more dictatorial about their media. But you see on the NFL slate, like, they only have, like, you have the old school football players or the former football players who actually can broadcast, right? Whether they went to school for it or not, they have the training program, which I know NBC has highlighted a couple of weeks ago, right, Morgan, about that broadcast program that they were doing for all the former players and the current players that are about to retire. They can go on to broadcasting if they so choose. And you have the Kelsey brothers and all they're doing for football and everything else. But you have a tighter infrastructure instead of, yelling what you get when it becomes basically the pregame show is a trade talk for basketball. The halftime show is trade talk. You have what you had post Sixers Boston with Stephen A. Smith and them arguing about who's the better 76er between Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. It's Joel Embiid, but for some reason people want to argue this because that's what they think. Basketball has basically become basketball media has basically become hot take coverage with Stephen A. Smith and a bunch of former players who hate the fact that you have a bunch of unicorn players who don't have to work for it. It's not the NBA that Morgan and I grew up with, where you have Michael Jordan and Kobe and everybody else struggling to put points on the board. It's not that anymore, right? It's not the basketball where you have 10 great players and then you have a bunch of scrubs next to them, right? It's not that, right? It is Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. It's the duos, the trios. The talent is way more spread out. And that's a great thing for basketball. That's why I said the product is really good. Like when you have 4 million people, 5 million, 7 million, 8 million people watching 5 different games, right? When you have that number, your product is great. You have a media problem, right? And I just think that's what the NBA needs to do. I'm so glad that they pulled the plug. And I know some of y'all are tired of me saying it, but I'm so glad that they pulled the plug on Warner Brothers and what they were doing with inside the NBA. But I was so happy to not, and Morgan knows this, is not that I personally have a problem with it. It's just as a basketball fan, I have a problem with it. I think they have degraded basketball coverage all over. I said this in Newhouse before. There's a lot of people who watch us that are from Syracuse professionals and professors of mine that know I've been saying this forever. The Inside the NBA has degraded NBA coverage. I don't think that they should basically sneeze and get an Emmy, as both Morgan and I have done in this various times throughout this program. We're not getting an Emmy by sneezing, but Inside the NBA can sneeze up some random dumb basketball coverage and get an Emmy. So, I'm of the mindset that there's that. You got national media members, some of them who I will not call out because I do like some of them. I've worked with them. Morgan and I have worked on a show with this person, so I won't bring her up because we worked on BFA with this person, so I will leave this alone. But, I'm of the mindset that formerly, I should say, now canceled BFA. I am of the mindset that, when you have professional media people who are just as old, if not as young or younger than Morgan and I, who come up here and say the mid-range game is dead, and somebody like, I didn't even bother her with this, but other people were saying Joel Embiid MVP, Nikola Jokic MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo MVP, LeBron James, Steph Curry, all these people that have mid-range games, and this person, both of us have worked with, Morgan knows what I'm talking about. She's seen her tweet. The mid-range game is dead, and then like everybody's running through like the last MVPs of the last few years that have won MVPs. Like sometimes I wonder, do these national media people watch basketball or do they just skim through it, a la Jay-Z? Because I think that's what we do. We have a lot of box score watching NBA media people who don't actually cover this. Like I am a Sixers reporter, but Morgan knows I get in my bag with this. Like most of the time, she was telling me before the show, maybe we need to cut some of the Sixers stuff, right? But this is where I get in my bag to prove that I'm not just this reporter, I'm an NBA reporter.
Which is
right?
why I let him. I give him 10 minutes. You're almost up. I gotta go to the grocery store.
So I'm of the mindset that, this is why the ratings have dropped, because when you have media that basically says, oh, these players suck, these players are trash, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, you have a Stephen A. Smith that spends time talking about, and I'll get to this and he's not him, like talking about, oh, Joel Embiid is basically at Ben Simmons level. Anybody with some basketball sense would never say that in their lives. Like Joel Embiid is one of the MVPs, never quit on his team like Ben Simmons did, right? But you have stupid asinine arguments like that belittle basketball, right? And they're not talking about the games, right? Morgan has seen it. We both worked on these shows where they don't even really talk about basketball. They're talking about, oh, okay, well, the Lakers, we both have worked on shows like this. Oh, the Lakers lost. What should they do? Is LeBron old? You're not even talking about the games. You talk about, is LeBron old? Like, yes, he's old. He's turning 40 today. Happy birthday, LeBron. He admits he's old. But, like, come on now. That's not – when you have a game that was really tight, really good, and fresh off Christmas, I think a lot of media people need to look who are not doing what I have said, and I've heard people say this. We do a better job of giving y'all pure basketball coverage than some of these people who make way more money than us. There's people who make millions of dollars. NBC will put them on soon. And there's people who make a lot of money, more money than the both of us, who don't talk this like we do. And so, NBA media, I am begging you to look at the mirror before you end up like Warner Brothers and the NBA's pulling the plug and giving your coverage to Amazon, back to NBC, sharing it with Netflix and CBS. Because if you think that you can't lose it, I'm here to tell you, a lot of people in our world, we're shocked, and we're saying, "Oh my goodness, how could Warner Brothers lose the NBA?" Morgan knows because I was telling her in person and on this show that I knew nothing, but I was guaranteed because I was telling her as a pure basketball stan, I can't stand Warner Brothers and the way they cover the NBA. Sure enough, the NBA came to my rule of thinking and they got rid of Warner Brothers. Right, Morgan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving right along, the All-Star game has changed. It's become a glorified pickup game. You're going to have 3 teams and the Rising Stars going up against each other. I think, again, this is a problem that doesn't need to be solved, but they're going to try it. We'll see how it goes. Because I know Morgan got to get to the store. So moving right along to a question for Morgan. How can the UConn women get back to the top of the college basketball world? Morgan.
Yeah, so originally there was a different title for this, and I was like, I don't like this title. I don't think it. The problem is that they're not necessarily doing anything wrong. They're beating up really bad on average teams, and they're playing close games against really good teams. So they need to find a way to beat a USC. They only lost by 2. They need to find a way to get together and beat them. And we chatted a little bit about this, but I don't think it's like a chemistry within the team. I just think that this is kind of it's a newer team. There's a lot of really good freshmen on the team. Ozzy's been out for a little bit. Hopefully she's, when she's back to full health, I think that will help as well. They're a team that I'm just not worried about before getting to, I'm not worried about them being ready for the tournament. I'm not worried about them winning the Big East. Those are just not things that I'm worried about. I just don't think that Gino is going to let them not be ready. He is one of the best college basketball coaches that has ever existed, and one of probably the best women's college basketball coach that has ever been created. He knows what he's doing.
Pride of Norristown, PA.
Yeah, there you go. I have pride in him. I have faith in him. I think that there are teams that are better. I think UCLA is a better team. I think USC and Notre Dame were better teams that night. But here's the thing. I just don't think you can ever count out UConn. It's still early in the season. It is, this part of the college basketball season is so frustrating. You just feel like nobody can get any kind of flow going. There's play, and then there's like the tournament around Thanksgiving, and they take some time off, and then they have like 2 games, and it's Christmas, and there's like a game on New Year's, and then like finally when they get back from winter break, they like start the real basketball season, and they're going 2 games every single week. They get in a flow, and I think once they get into that flow, I think they're going to be really hard to beat. I think that there's some top tier talent, and I think that the Elite 8 this year for women's college basketball is going to be really, really, really impressive, and I think that there are a lot of teams that could win. I'm not saying that I think that UConn should be favored number 1, the number 1 team, have the best odds. I don't think so. But I don't have as much worry, I think, maybe as some people do. I just think because I've watched these specific women and this coach do his thing, that I think they're going to be fine. So moving on from college basketball, Yeah. So the beginning of the season is just super frustrating. So this kind of came out a little bit later in the day, but it's another situation of a coach being sued by former players based on not paying them NIL money. And you've heard me say this, and I feel for the players, but I also don't, because if you don't have stuff in writing, if you don't have contracts signed and things like that, I know that the NIL is a sticky situation and all that stuff, but $1.5 million is a lot of money, and you need to, if you're going to pack up your life and go somewhere, I think you need to have it in writing. Now, I'm not saying that Leonard Hamilton was a saint in this situation. He probably wasn't. But, there's a million things going on. And I think that for legalities, unfortunately, I don't think that Maybe they do. Maybe they have contracts and things that we haven't seen. But unless they do, they're not going to win this settlement. The worst that's going to happen is that people are not going to want to go to FSU for basketball unless they get things in writing, which I just think should be a standard. Should be something that is standard across the board, that you get. It's like signing a contract. It's like committing to a team. It's signing up for college. You shouldn't be just being like, oh, I'm going to give you $500,000. You got it. And the guy's like, yeah, that's right. No, like, that's a lot of money. And I understand that not everybody has sports agents and not everybody has the ability to do that. But in my brain, it's kind of common sense. You can't just trust somebody on their word. Kylan is way more skeptical of college coaches than I am. I'm more of the optimistic one. You can't just trust them. They're going to say whatever they want to say to get you to come to their school. Don't accept it until it's in writing. Oh, you're on mute, I think, Kylan.
Check. No.
There you are. You're really low, but I can hear you.
Okay, there we go. Got me now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't know what happened. Something temporary. But yeah, she read my mind, right? Like, you got to get things in writing. Obviously, this is $250,000 per per player. There we go. $250,000 per player. Obviously, this is very serious. Ross Dellinger and Yahoo Sports really got into this where it was so bad that clearly he screwed a lot of players here. This is why they're only suing Leonard Hamilton and not Florida State as a whole. He's the only one named in this. This is something that he worked out with these 6 players to pay them $1.5 million in total, $250,000 each. And I just think if you're a coach and you're making these promises and you're not getting it in, verbal contracts. Anybody that's watched Judge Mathis, Judge Judy, everybody knows that verbal contracts, as far as, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, I did want to be one. In the legal field, you need to have everything in writing, and I think that some of these players will learn this now. But I just think this is a great check for me on coaches who just, as Morgan said, I think that, all coaches lie to get you to come to their school. So I'm of the mindset that this is a great check on them. I think that, at this point, as some people have said, I follow a lot of sports lawyers who have basically said that basically what these players are alleging is that they were paid to play, right? This money was based on how they played, and it seems like they were able to get enough people. As Morgan knows, it's hard to get 12 players on a basketball team to agree on anything other than putting points on the board. But getting a bunch of players to basically agree that you're screwed. And like, I think in the article, they talked about how Florida State was close to not playing a game because they were upset about this. So, and if that money or something hadn't been worked out, they wouldn't have played that game. Now, I feel like, we've seen some football players talk about this. I retweeted one. I think he played for Buffalo or something at one point, and he was saying the same thing, that even if they get it in writing, it's not guaranteed that they get their money. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these players transferring out of these, whether they be small, big, or medium-sized college football programs. So this is as widespread as it seems. It's not just Florida State University men's basketball. There are a lot of coaches who are lying to these players and need to be sued. So if this is the case, then this seems to me, if you're a lawyer, this is a perfect class action lawsuit to really get your bread. And I think this is, see, these schools and their arrogance and these coaches and their arrogance, man. Like, I tweeted this. There should be a college players union for everybody to collectively bargain for this, because this is basically employment contracts. And if the NCAA and all these people who want football and basketball to go back to what they are, just do that. Get a union, get it collectively bargained, let the contracts be the contracts, and that's it. And so we will follow this closely. Definitely believe that we will be reporting on this in the next couple of weeks if anything changes. But this is a classic case of Leonard Hamilton and people who represent schools and the NCAA playing themselves.
Yeah.
Morgan?
Yeah, that's kind of all I got. So shout out to, I think, shout out to all the families and everybody. It's been an awesome holiday season. I am, blessed to be surrounded by awesome family and friends. that are making, my pregnancy easier. And, it's been lovely to get to show them Connecticut. And I am really, really blessed, just kind of, in a state of happiness for the holidays. How about you?
Yeah, I want to shout out my family members on shouts out to didn't get a chance to shout this out last week because technical difficulties with the mutes and stuff. But I want to shout out my church had a great mass choir concert a few weeks ago. So shout out to Chloe Smith and the music ministry of Struggle Church, because they really put on a great program for a mass choir concert, and I think it was really great. I know I was entertained, and a lot of people were. So shouts out to them. Shouts out to my family for a great Christmas holiday season. Looking forward to spending the new year with the Watson family and everything else. So shouts out to that. And we're going to go real quick on this. He's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them, because Morgan got to go to the store.
I got to go. The grocery store closes at 10. I'm like, Kyle, I got to go. All right. Yeah. So I just have one there then. And I'm going to call a specific broadcast out. I don't know anybody on this broadcast. I don't know who was on this. This is not me trying to be mean. Fox that was broadcasting the Vikings game this week. Come on. We know that when the Vikings defense has a takeaway, their new thing is they have these awesome choreographed routines. They work on them for the whole week ahead of time. They're normally
the High School Musical one.
Yep, they're normally Disney Channel themed, whatever. Your analyst even says, and now let's see what. Never mind. I guess we're doing a replay, and I guess we're going to break. When even your analyst thinks that you're going to go and show the celebration that they've been working on, and they're PG, they've all been Disney themed. They did Camp Rock. They did the White Chicks one, which was like, it's just funny. They're done, now this is High School Musical, and you just cut away and you don't show it. And then even like coming back from the break, you don't show it. You know what I mean? Like, even like, okay, maybe you want to make sure it's appropriate, whatever. But then when you come back from the break, it's High School Musical. You had to ask one person, one millennial in that room knew that was High School Musical. And if you don't have somebody in your booth that doesn't know, you're in the truck that doesn't know what High School Musical is, I would say you might need to be hiring someone younger, or I don't know what you need in that booth. But if not a single person knew that was High School Musical, even your own analyst thought that that's what you were going to show. So thank goodness the Vikings social media managers had recorded it and they tweeted it out so that everybody got to see it, because it was so fun and so good. And then I think maybe later on in the broadcast, Fox did end up showing it. But, being aware of what's going on in your own game is really important. And that was a moment that I think everybody would have loved to see live that we did not get to see because of that. That's all I got this week. It's Christmas. Everybody was nice.
For me, I'm gonna go with, I said NBA media already, so I'll go with refs. You saw it in two games this week with the Eagles and the Sixers, right? Reffing. I know reffing is hard. It's not me kicking refs in the balls and the nuts when they're down, but I mean, like, you had a ref kick out Joel Embiid from a game, and a lot of people made it more than what it was. Some context there. The same ref had kicked out Andre Drummond and then made a mistake. The Sixers challenged it. She unejected Andre Drummond, and then wound up ejecting Joel Embiid in a game that the NBA really, really advertised. You saw it. Speaking of Fox again, with the reffing of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I mean, we talk about this every time, that sometimes these refs get beside themselves. And this is regardless of gender, because I think that there are times when refs power trip. Like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson got tossed out of a big game with the Commanders. And I don't know if Morgan had a better view than I did, but I know from watching it, I didn't get to see it on the broadcast, what he did to get tossed. Like, they gave him too unsportsmanlike and no one showed it. I don't know. I know she did PFT or did some stuff with it. So I don't know if Sims and them talked about it and y'all got a better view than I did, but I don't think anybody saw what he got tossed for. And then to kick him even more in the nuts, then he got $75,000 for something that none of us saw. The NFL, the rest were just like, trust us, bro. And the NFL was like, okay, here's $75,000 out your pocket, Chauncey. Like, I'm of the mindset that when you have players that love their craft like an Embiid, like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, like, I know that reputation precedes you, but before you make that game-altering decision to kick somebody, especially an important player, whether it's the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, out of a game, it needs to be something egregious. Like, I've seen Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James. I've even seen Steph Curry do worse than what Joel Embiid did, yelling at the ref. I know some people saw a female ref and a big, tall African dude and was like, "Oh my God, he's targeting the refs." No. It was a very, very charged game. This ref, she might be a lovely person, but I don't know if she needs to ref any more games until she can just learn. Like, with games like that, you got, especially that they're advertised, Wemby versus Joel Embiid. Those are big games. I mean, NBC constructed a whole Olympic semifinals around that matchup. So I know Morgan knows that's a big matchup that people want to see. Victor Wembanyama versus Joel Embiid. That was the whole, sauce. We call it sizzle in media around the Olympic matchup. Morgan knows it, seeing what the fans were doing, booing him. So my day on them to the refs. Do better. It's Christmas. Happy New Year. I got to let Morgan go, but final thoughts and goodbye.
Happy New Year. We'll be back with probably more of a normal schedule going forward. These, just like I said, Wednesday holidays just mess everything up. Right. I got to go run to the grocery store. The dogs are looking at me like, "We don't have any food, Mom." My husband is looking at me. He came downstairs. I was like, "What are you eating?" He was like, "Cheez-Its. We don't have anything for dinner." So I got to go to the grocery store so my family doesn't starve. Thank you guys all for watching. Subscribe, comment, share, follow us along. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
All right, see ya. There you go.